remain muted at all times. That they must use the floor microphones. Delegates must wear a face mask at all times. They must occupy seats marked for that purpose. And they must at all times maintain social distancing, a distance of at least 1.5 meters from each other. That the delegates must switch on their videos if they want to speak and or address the chair. Any delegate who wishes to speak must use the raise your hand function or icon, and that all delegates must participate in the discussion through the chat room. Honorable delegates, I have been informed that there will be no notices of motions or motions without notice, except the motion on the order paper in the name of the Chief Whip. I now call upon the Chief Whip to move the motion in the order paper. Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I move that the Council resolves that Rule 239, subsection 1, which provides inter alia that the consideration of a bill may not commence before at least 3 working days have lapsed since the committee's report was tabled, be suspended for purposes of consideration of adjustments appropriation bill, Bill 20 of 2021, referred to us by the National Assembly. I so move, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Chief Whip. We will now proceed to the voting on the motion. And I shall put the question, and the question is that the motion be agreed to. But before I proceed to voting, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote in terms of Rule 71, if they so wish. I also remind delegates, maximum time allowed for this purpose is 3 minutes. So it's 3 minutes per declaration. Any declaration? None. None. Thank you very much. I now call upon the province votes. When called upon, heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. We'll do so in alphabetical order. Eastern Cape.
Morning, Chair. Eastern Cape, Yavum.
Yavum, Eastern Cape. Free State.
Free State supports.
Free State supports. Gauteng.
Gauteng in favor.
Gauteng in favor. KwaZulu-Natal.
KwaZulu-Natal iseka sihlahla.
KwaZulu-Natal supports. Limpopo.
Limpopo supports.
Limpopo supports. Mpumalanga.
Mpumalanga supports.
Mpumalanga supports. Northern Cape.
Northern Cape supports.
Northern Cape supports. Northwest.
Northwest support, Chairperson.
Northwest supports. Western Cape.
The Western Cape supports, Chairperson.
Western Cape supports. Thank you very much. Vote is now closed. So all 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the motion agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. We'll then move on and proceed to the first, second, and third orders of the day. Consideration of rates and monetary amounts, an amendment of Revenue Bill B21-2021. Consideration of Taxation Laws Amendment Bill B22-2021 and report of Select Committee on Finance thereon, and consideration of Tax Administration Laws Amendment Bill B23-2021 and report of Select Committee on Finance thereon. Bills will be voted separately, but I'll now call upon Honorable Karim, Chairperson of Select Committee on Finance, to present the committee report. Honorable Karim,
Chairperson, there was a correction to the program. It's actually Mr. Njadu that's doing that, and I'm doing the declarations. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. We'll call upon Njadu, having noted the point that is made by Honorable Karim.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Salinga phambili siyabulisa ngalentsasa. No sekela uhlalo and the Chief Whip Mohai, provinces, the NCOP members, and every South African. Honorable Chairperson, the Select Committee on Finance is presenting one report, but which are three bills. The three bills are the Monetary Amounts and Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill, which is Bill 21, and the Tax Administration Laws Amendment Bill, which is Bill 23, and the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill, which is Bill 22. Now, Chairperson, these bills are interrelated. Section 77 of the Constitution requires all money bills to be considered in accordance with a procedure for passing a revenue bill established by the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act 2009, Money Bills Act, Section 11, 1 to 3 of the Money Bills Act. The Minister of Finance first introduced the draft version, the 2021 Tax Administration Laws Amendment Bill, TALAP, during the February 2021 National Budget. Tabling the TALAP was formally tabled in Parliament on the 11th of November 2021, together with the Medium-Term Budget Policy Statement, MTBS. On the 13th November 2021, the National Council of Provinces, NCOP, formally referred the TALAP to the Select Committee of Finance for consideration and reporting. In terms of a procedure followed to process the TALAP, the committee received a briefing from the National Treasury, the South African Revenue Service, SARS, on 13 November 2021. Despite calling for public comments, the committee received no submissions on 2021 TALAP. Chairperson, on the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, B22, the committee notes the withdrawal of some proposed amendments in the 2021 Tax Laws Amendment Bill after the public consultation process, and that these amendments may be considered in the next legislative cycle. The committee reports the proactive measures taken by the National Treasury to curb abuse of the employment tax incentive and ensure that the incentive achieves its intended objectives. The rate of unemployment in South Africa is very high, at 34.9% in the third quarter of 2021 and persistent. The incentive is expected to encourage employers to hire young work seekers by providing a reduction in the amount of employees' tax to be paid over a SARS by employees for the first 24 months. Chairperson, then on the Rates and Monetary and Amendments Revenue Bill, Laws Bill, the committee notes that tax on alcohol and tobacco are guided by a policy framework that targets the excise duty burden, and that National Treasury will review this policy framework during the 2021-22 financial year. The committee further notes that the purpose of excise taxes on tobacco and alcohol beverages is to reflect the harmful external cost related to excise resumption. The committee calls for a greater degree of cooperation and interaction between the industry and South African Revenue Service to bring about better compliance for the benefit of all legitimate stakeholders as well as for the benefit of the fiscus and the country. Chairperson, after the committee have considered all the three reports or the bills, the following is that the committee accepted all reports, and the Democratic Alliance, Economic Freedom Fighters, and the Freedom Front reserved their positions. Therefore, Chairperson, the committee tabled this report in front of the House for consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Judge. I now put the question in respect of the first order. The question is that the bill be agreed to. But before we proceed to voting, I shall allow political parties the opportunity to make the declaration of votes in terms of Rule 63 if they so wish. The maximum time again for declaration is 3 minutes per declaration. Well, in my list here, I have 4 political parties, FF Plus, EFF, TA, and the ANC. We'll start with the Ryder, Honorable Ryder, because his hand was up first.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Rates and Monetary Amounts and Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill, the Tax Laws Amendment Bill, and the Tax Administration Laws Amendment Bill are technical and quite complex bills. Sadly, the bills before us today do not take into account the hardships that were imposed on the tobacco and alcohol industries by the lockdown, and sin taxes are again levied on the legitimate operators, while the illicit trade which rushed in to fill the government-enforced gap created by the lockdown, continued to operate without real impediment. A much higher degree of cooperation is required between SARS and the legitimate industry operators to ensure that our laws are upheld. Taxpayers are beginning to begrudge their tax payments more and more as they see the storage of wastage, excess, and theft unrolling in the media and in the public discourse through such mechanisms as the Zondo Commission. The increasing tax burden on a dwindling taxpayer pool already has a negative connotation, and now the heavier compliance burdens and penalties that are placed on taxpayers who are already compliant, albeit a little bit late, add to the negative perceptions around tax collection. There is sadly little in the bills on the table that encourages growth and incentivizes compliance. There's rather a tightening down on legitimate mechanisms to reduce tax liabilities. Tax evaders, however, still get away scot-free. Not tax-free, scot-free. Attacking the low-hanging fruit and the easy targets appears to be a theme. The carbon tax, the sugar tax, the tightening up around compliant taxpayers, the sin taxes levied on legitimate businesses all seem to be finding ways of getting more water to pour into the leaky bucket. Now, the leaks in the bucket all are the direct result of corruption, state capture, and excessive borrowing, the cost of which has crowded out service delivery as the country struggles to service its debt. Honourable Chair, the Democratic Alliance does not support these bills. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other declaration? None. That being the case.
Honourable Chair, hands are up. The virtual
yes. FS Plus, yes.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Voorsitter, van die grootste redes hoekom die regering wysigings aan die belastingwetgewing moes maak deur middel van onder andere noodmaatreëls, ook bekend as belastingwysigings, om fondse te bekom om die regeringsgeskepte finansiële dilemma waarin Suid-Afrika tans bevind as gevolg van COVID-inperkingsregulasies en die gevolge daarvan. Radikale ekonomiese transformasie, selektiewe hulpverlening deur die regering en die impak van politieke binnengevegte in die ANC-faksies en ander politieke woelinge wat gedurende Julie vanjaar in Natal as ook Gauteng in die vorm van plundering, onrus, geweld en ekonomiese sabotasie gemanifesteer het. Die regering het grootliks bygedra tot die benarde situasie waarin die ekonomie hom bevind en nou met getroue, reeds swaar belastingbetalers nog meer opdok. Hierdie ripple effek word ongelukkig deur die res van Suid-Afrika gevoel, waar dit die seerste maak, in ons sakke, ongelukkig vir die meeste van ons, op ons borde. So-called emergency tax measures currently used by government to pick low-hanging fruit by restricting back taxpayers to withdraw their own hard-earned money as they wish for the so-called greater good. Hierdie fondse van persone wat al lewe lang finansiëel bygedra tot die opbou van die land, instandhouding van die ekonomie, subsidiering van vele persone wat nooit 'n finansiële las op die fiskus geplaas het nie. In kort word persone met pensioenfondse nou deur wetgewing gestraf, omdat hulle 'n visie gehad het en 'n visie het, die drang om oorlewing wat steeds verantwoordelik deur hul are bruis. Pensioners are prevented through legislation from manifesting their most basic instinct, namely self-preservation, and the wisdom not to be dependent on the state. Die regering moet besef dat belasting verdien moet word. Hulle kan nie net daarop aanspraak maak nie. Hoekom word onttrekkings uit pensioenfondse so belas? Die regering verkwalik regdenkende persone omdat hulle nie die leenagtige rowersbende met hul neseier vertrou nie en nie noodwendig na groener weivelde op soek is nie, maar eerder 'n veilige hawe waar hierdie verantwoordelike persone kan oorleef en hul finansies self daaroor kan besluit. Die keiser moet besef dat hy kan eis wat hom toekom, nie dit wat hy homself toeëien nie. The Freedom Front Plus does not support these votes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Duprat. Any other declaration?
EFF.
EFF, yes, Mletsane, Sandamera Mletsane.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Taxation Law Amendment Bill, the Tax Administration Law Amendment Bill, and the Rates Bill are legislations which are considered for the purpose of collecting revenue. We consider these bills in order to consider government expenditure, cost of living, inflation, and overall administration of taxation. This piece of legislation also assists SARS with the administrative collection of revenue. However, the reality which we are faced with is that of an economy which is not growing. As a result, workers are burdened with taxes while wages remain stagnant, while the cost of living increases drastically. The cost of living has increased to such an extent that our people are no longer believe that this country will ever recover from its economic despair. These are the realities of many of our people today. It is therefore important that we, as a country, revisit the discussion of wealth tax, for people are not going to volunteer redistribution unless there is legislation that imposes redistribution. As the EFF, we have said before that SARS must build capacity to tax businesses which continue to operate in this country without paying tax, such as e-commerce businesses which carry billions of transactions that are going without any tax implications. SARS continue to fail with its most simple mandate of building sufficient administrative capacity to maximally collect taxes, and we as EFF raised this matter before. For there are businesses that continue to trade without paying tax, not because they are hiding from SARS, but SARS simply does not have capacity to collect taxes. To start building capacity, SARS must have offices that are decentralized and not only be present in cities and central business district. EFF doesn't support this bill. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. We'll now proceed to Honorable Karim.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, I mean, if you consider, Chairperson, elements of what these various speakers have said from the different parties, one can agree with it. But they de-link those elements from the broader considerations. There are a whole lot of balances you have to seek between different considerations here. You've got to manage, on the one hand, for example, when it comes to the tobacco industry, the needs and interests of emerging farmers, and then, of course, established farmers, the employees that are there who are losing their jobs, the issue of, very crucially, the health considerations. So whether it's illicit or legal tobacco, there are health hazards at stake, although clearly with the illicit tobacco trade, those health hazards are considerably exaggerated. But we also have to see more and more, it's emerging from experts and the state, that there's also a very thin line here. Some of the entrepreneurs or manufacturers in the legal trade are also maybe impelled by the effects of the COVID-19 lockdown restrictions on tobacco smoking last year and into this year, maybe because of that or whatever. They're also, to some or other extent, involved in shady or, illicit tobacco production areas. So it's a very complex area. But overall, what none of the speakers has pointed to is the health hazard and the consequences of smoking, whether you get a cigarette that's legally manufactured or is illicit, although the latter is most likely to be more deleterious to your health. Now, I think it's also very unfair. Yes, we all agree that money laundering must be stopped, that the tobacco industry facilitates that, illicit financial flow should be stemmed. I know the National Assembly Committee meets every quarter and discusses this, but if the NCOP committee, we feel we should do that, we can do that, we'll join them. Now, I also need to point out, Chairperson, that we really don't agree with a nanny state. I don't know why the Freedom Front Plus keeps bleating about this. Nobody wants a nanny state. 46% of the people are currently receiving grants. It's undignified for them. It's dehumanizing for them. Most of them want to find a job and get some dignity. There are some, no doubt, like in every other country, who actually don't want to work and would prefer to rely on state grants. Those state grants are far from adequate anyway. So it's not as if the state is deliberately creating people who are unemployed and then rescuing them, which is a subtext or sometimes more explicit text of what Mr. Fani Dutoit says in the committee or maybe elsewhere in the debates we've had. He seems to think that it's a new form of slavery. Even that term, which he used last time, Chairperson, is extremely emotionally and morally questionable. He's not gone, nor have I, to some other form of slavery, as African people have in this country and elsewhere in the developing world.
As you conclude,
yes, but then, Chairperson, why can't we agree that people reach us halfway here? We make many concessions to the opposition parties on these issues. They're oversimplistic and crude in what they're saying, really. And they're focusing on one particular element without linking it. What are bills, after all, and particularly tax bills, if not balances? That's what politics is about, the art of balances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable members will now allow 30 seconds to delegates who are outside the chamber and on the virtual platform to join the House. The 30 seconds starts now. Ten seconds left. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to voting on the question. And the question is that the bill be agreed to. Now we'll start with those delegates who wish to vote in favor. So please raise your hands and please keep them there as the counting continues.
Honorable Chair, I'm Dodovu. Please note my hand in the affirmation.
Noted.
Morning, Chair. Honorable Mshodi vote in favor.
Mshodi's vote is also noted.
Enoch Mtetwa, Chair. I've got a new gadget here and still learning this one.
I can't hear you.
Enoch Mtetwa, Chair.
Oh, Mtetwa.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think I will come right in the next one.
Thank you very much. I'm sure the counting is done. The table would now lower the hands in the system, and I'm sure you can lower your hands, honorable members. We'll now move on to the vote against. Please raise your hands and keep them there. There you are. Against. I'm sure counting is done, and I'm sure the hands can be lowered. Those who want to abstain, abstentions, can we have the hands up? No. Thank you very much. Voting is now closed. We await the table to indicate the results. Yes. 6. Okay. Now, thank you very much. The results are as follows: in favor, 32. Against, 6. Abstentions, none. So the bill is agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. Thank you very much, Honorable Delegates. I now put the question in respect of the second order. The question is that the bill be agreed to. But before we proceed to voting, I shall allow political parties the opportunity to make their declarations. They should vote in terms of Rule 63, if they so wish. According to my list, there are 4 political parties wishing to make declarations: FF+, EFF, TA, and the ANC. Let's start with any of those that are here. It doesn't seem like there's any appetite. And that being the case, we will then proceed and allow 30 seconds to delegates who are outside the chamber and virtual platform to join the House. Yes.
Just clarity on the vote on the previous one, because I heard 6 against. No, but I heard 6. I just want to make sure whether I heard correctly.
6, yeah.
Only 6.
Only 6.
There's 6 in the House.
6 in the House, yeah.
Chairperson, did you include the online votes?
It has to be corrected, Chair. It can't be 6.
Sorry?
How do you know when the vote is 6?
We are back to what you did yesterday, Chairperson. So yesterday you did the same thing. You ignored the online vote.
So that we should just revert back to the voting there. No, it's important that we do that. And for me, just to clarify what happened. There were 32 in favor. And thank you very much. Sorry for that. Is in favor it was 32, and against it was 6 in the House plus 14, and that makes it 20. Okay, thank you very much. Sorry for the problem there. No, thank you very much. We'll now move to the second order. And I now put the question. The question is that the bill be agreed to. And then we move to declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. And there are 4 political parties, as indicated earlier on, who wish to make declarations. So the question is, are there any declarations? Any declarations at all? None. The 30 seconds have lapsed already, and I'm sure we can proceed to the next step. We now proceed to voting on the question, and the question is that the bill be agreed to. So we'll start with those who want to vote or wish to vote in favor. Please raise your hands.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Mshodi, vote in favor.
Yes, we'll add that. That's noted.
Mashodi, it's been 3 years and you still didn't know how to put up your hand.
Is your name Mashada?
Noted. Please keep your hands up.
Honorable Chair, Dodovia, I'm struggling with my budget.
Noted. I'm sure the count is now completed, and the table will ask those on the platform to lower their hands. Please lower your hands. We'll now move on to those who wish to vote against. Those who wish to vote against.
Also to move out here, it's not going to be easy for now.
Can we have a bit of order there? Those who wish to vote against, please keep your hands up. Okay. I'm sure the hands can now be lowered. Let's go to those who wish to vote, to abstain, indicate their vote as abstentions. Those abstaining, please raise your hands. None in the House. I'm sure we'll check in the system. The count is now completed. The vote is as follows: 37 in favor, 20 against, no abstentions. Thank you very much. The bill is now approved in terms of Section 5 of the Constitution. We'll proceed to the third order. And I put the question is that the bill be agreed to. But before we proceed to voting, I'll now allow opportunity for the making of declarations in terms of Rule 63, if they so wish. Any declarations? None, it seems. And that being the case, we'll allow for a few seconds for those who are outside the chamber on which platform to join the House. Thank you very much. We now proceed to voting on the question, and the question is that the bill be agreed to. Let's start with those who wish to vote in favor. Please raise your hands.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable
and keep them there. I'm sure this vote is noted.
And Dodovu.
If you can just request members, as those hands are up, that if you are voting here in the House, please don't vote again. It doesn't make sense, and it creates other difficulties and problems. So those in favor, I'm sure the counting is done. And that being the case, the hands can be lowered. Let's move on to those delegates who wish to vote against. Those against, please raise your hands, and let's keep them up there until counting is done. I'm sure counting in the House is done. The hands can be lowered. We'll now look at those who wish to abstain. Any abstentions? None in the House. And we'll check those in the system. I'm sure counting has been done, and all hands can be lowered. But now await the results. The results are as follows: 31 in favor, 23 against, no abstentions. Thank you very much. The bill is therefore agreed to in terms of Section 75 of the Constitution. We now proceed to the 4th, 5th, and 6th orders. Consideration of the report of Select Committee on Appropriations, Expenditure and Performance of the HIV and AIDS grant and learners with profound intellectual disabilities grant in the 2020-2021 financial year, dated 17 November 2021. Consideration of the report of Select Committee of Appropriations, Financial and Fiscal Commission submission for the Division of Revenue 2022-23 financial year, dated 17 November 2021, and consideration of report report of Select Committee on Appropriations, proposed division of revenue and conditional grants allocation to provinces and local government. I call on Honorable Matangu, Chairperson of the Select Committee, to present the report.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Deputy Chairperson of the NSOP, Honorable Chief Whip, Date Mohai, permanent and special delegates present on the visual, MECs, speakers, and Chief Whips from the provinces, those who are available on the platform. Bahayesu Dumela. It is an honor and a privilege to table before this House, Honorable Chairperson, a report on the Financial and Fiscal Commission submission of the 2022-23 Division of Revenue recommendations on behalf of the Select Committee on Appropriations. I'm happy to report to this House that on the 25th of August 2021, the committee received and noted the report for the FFC submission on the 2022-23 Division of Revenue recommendations under the theme, the effects of COVID-19 and the changing architecture of subnational government financing in South Africa. The report was tabled in terms of Section 9, subsection 1 of the Intergovernmental Fiscal Relations Act of 1997 as amended, which requires the Commission to table its division of revenue recommendations for the following financial year for the executive to consider. I will thank you for that one, Honorable Chairperson, the report on the FFC. As per your directive, I'll now go to the second report. I'm still honored, Honorable Chairperson, for being able, on behalf of Appropriations Committee, to table before this August House a report on the expenditure and performance of the HIV and AIDS and learners with profound intellectual disability grant on behalf of the Select Committee Chairperson as indicated in the National Council of Provinces. The committee anonymously adopted the report while the DA, the Freedom Front Plus and the EFF abstained. Chairperson, Section 4, subsection A and E and D of the Money Bills and Related Matters Act number 9 of 2009 as amended in 2018 mandates the committee to consider and report on spending issues, report on statements on actual expenditure published by the National Treasury and any other related matter set out in the Act. These provisions, Honorable Chairperson, read together with Section 32 of the Public Finance Management Act, number 1 of 1999 as amended, and Section 16 of the Division of Revenue Act, provides the framework of the legislative sector to play an oversight role over the executive. Due to persistent under-expenditure and underperformance of the HIV/AIDS, the life skills education grant and the learners with profound intellectual disabilities grant in the 2020-21 financial year, the committee conducted visual oversight on the 18th and 19th August 2021. All 9 provincial departments of education were invited to report on performance of these conditional grants and to provide and highlight key challenges experienced and propose interventions to prevent this in the upcoming financial years. During this oversight engagement, Honorable Chairperson, the National Treasury and the Department of Basic Education, the FFC, as well as the PPO, were requested to make inputs on the performance of the 2 grants, and all 9 provincial treasuries were invited to take part in the engagement. Upon the engagement, Honorable Chairperson, the committee has made the following observations and recommendations. The Department of Basic Education and all provincial departments of education through MINMEC should urgently strive to find a solution to address procurement and supply chain management deficiencies, especially for assessive devices, PPEs, and other imported goods which are crucial to support learning programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Noting that provinces have not been fully complying with the provisions of the conditional grant framework, the Department of Basic Education and provincial departments, together with provincial treasuries and national treasury, need to urgently identify the root causes of the non-compliance and address these, instead of resorting to withholding funds, which does not solve the problem entirely. The Department of Education and provinces are advised to approach National Treasury and provincial treasurers for assistance through sector forums and National Treasury to further clarify the conditions and requirements as prescribed. The Department of Basic Education and National Treasury should strive to streamline the reporting process for the LSPID grant by reducing the number of expected outputs and improve the linkage between the expected outputs and overall grant objectives. Honorable Chairperson, the Limpopo and Eastern Cape Departments of Education should improve their capacity to implement these 2 grants, conduct a full assessment of the required capacity and the necessary support to be provided, and further improve their procurement of goods and services such as LTSM. The Northwest Department of Education should fast-track its collaborative approach with other stakeholders and other departmental partners to ensure that sexual reproductive services are initiated in schools from the current financial year as planned. Honorable Chairperson, KZN Department of Education should fast-track the recruitment of 3 additional educational psychologists, as well as fill the many other funded vacant positions as soon as possible. The Mpumalanga Department of Education should address the issues around all key funded vacant positions, including that of educational psychologists, occupational therapists, and other critical posts which are necessary for frontline service delivery. The Mpumalanga Department of Education should urgently address the issue of placing all the learners who had been profiled by educational psychologists for the LSPID team in special schools by addressing the issues of inadequate space, which makes placements difficult. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members, the Northern Cape and other provinces with similar challenges with filling key funded vacancies for specialist skills should invoke a scarce skills recruitment process and appointment policy measures to address these challenges. The Gauteng Department of Education should fast-track the process to conclude the psychological assessment to confirm PID diagnosis that had not been done by the end of the 2020-21 financial year. The Department of Communications and Digital Technologies, together with the Department of Basic Education, should intensify the rollout of infrastructure for connectivity programs so that all South Africans will have access to visual activities, including homeschooling. Parliament should continue to monitor this important matter, given the impact of COVID-19. Honorable Chairperson, I will now go to the last report as per your directive. The last report is the proposed division of revenue and conditional grant allocation to provinces and municipalities and adjustment appropriations bill 2021. Honorable Chairperson, the report has been presented to the House, to the committee during the process of processing this bill, and I can undoubtedly report that during that process, as we finalized the committee anonymously adopted the report. The DA, the Freedom Front Plus, EFF rejected the report as usual. Honorable Chairperson, the Minister of Finance tabled the medium-term budget policy statement together with the adjustment appropriation bill in Parliament on the 11th of November 2021. The bill was tabled in terms of Section 12, subsection 4 of the Money Bills and Related Matters Act number 9 of 2009. The Act requires subsequently the MTBPS process, and the bill was referred to the National Council of Provinces and to the committee on the 30th of November 2021. There were public participations and engagements that took place during this process, Honorable Chairperson, and in order to facilitate effective participation, in line with the Section 72 of our Constitution as the Republic of South Africa, the committee published an advert in 11 official languages, and written submissions were received from the Congress of South African Trade Unions, People's Budget Coalition, and POP Crew. In accordance with Section 214, subsection 2, the Constitution and Section 10, subsection 4 of the Intergovernmental Fiscal Relations Act number 797 of 1997, the committee consulted with the FFC, SALGA, and PBO. Honorable Chairperson, the following observations and recommendations were observed by the committee. The committee welcomed the proposed allocation of 48.4% of the available non-interest spending to national departments, 42% to provinces, and 9.6% to local government over the next 3 years. However, the committee remains concerned that the allocation to local government is still not enough. Underline that. Whilst noting the impact of COVID-19 on the economy, the committee is of the view that National Treasury and Cabinet should outline and continue to intensify efforts to develop policies, interventions, and measures to grow the economy in the MTF period, to avoid a situation where transfers to provinces and municipalities continue to grow below inflation. Whilst welcoming the annual update of the provincial equitable share formula, Chairperson, to ensure unfair funding allocation for each province. The committee urges National Treasury and the Department of Health to expedite the process of phasing in the changes to the health component, which accounts to 27% of the formula. The committee is of the view that the monitoring system for PES spending is in place to achieve spending efficiency. The committee, Honorable Chair and members, welcomes introduction of various components into the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant over the years, but the National Treasury and the Department of Health should ensure that this grant expenditure is improved and implemented according to the Division of Revenue Act framework. The committee welcomed the shifting of the mental health and oncology components introduced in the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant in the 2021 MTEF to the direct national health insurance grant for provinces. The National Treasury and the Department of Health need to make sure that sound financial management and procurement processes are improved for provincial health departments to avoid wastages. The Department of Basic Education, together with provincial counterparts, should ensure that the lack of parity between provinces regarding the stipend paid to ECD workers is urgently addressed. The committee urges the Department of Transport to fast-track the development of objective criteria for incentive component of the provincial road maintenance grant, which has been removed from the baseline due to delays. Honorable Chair, further, the National Treasury and the Department of Transport, together with their provincial counterparts, should make sure that allocations earmarked for the PRMG are utilized effectively according to the grant framework to address the poor state of some provincial roads which negatively affect economic activities. Whilst the committee welcomed the expansion of scope for the Municipal Infrastructure Grant, the MIC, to help the municipalities to improve their asset management, the committee urges the Department of COGTA to fast-track the process of identifying municipalities that require such interventions for funds to be earmarked in the 2022-23 financial year. Whilst the committee welcomes the increased allocation for local government over the medium term, and National Treasury and the Department of COGTA, together with their provincial counterparts and SALGA, need to work together to ensure that suitably qualified individuals are appointed for municipalities. The committee is of the view that building in-house capacity is paramount for any stable government, and therefore the amount of 1 billion rand reportedly spent on consultants to compile municipal financial reports is unacceptable, especially when municipal finance management units have been established in the provincial treasuries to assist. The National Treasury, together with COGTA, should ensure that challenges affecting local government are adequately diagnosed before solutions are developed, and the current fragmented capacity building initiatives are reviewed and tailored to respond to specific capacity challenges in local government. They should also ensure that municipal finance management units are strengthened and accountability is enforced both politically and administratively to ensure consequence management for transgressors. Honorable Chairperson, in conclusion, I wish to thank all committee members, provincial committee members, committee stakeholders, media and general public, which made written and oral submissions, as well as committee support staff. Without these role players, Honorable Chair and honorable members in the House, and those in the platform, this process will not have been a success. The committee recommends to the House that the bills on the MTBPS report be adopted without amendment. Ngiyathokoza.
Siyathokoza, Honorable Masango. I now put the question in respect of the fourth order. The question is that the report be adopted. But before we proceed, I shall allow provinces an opportunity to make their declaration in terms of Rule 71 if they so wish. Again, maximum time is 3 minutes per declaration. Any declaration? None in the House? Any declaration? Sure, none on the platform as well. We shall now proceed to the voting on the question. And the question is that the report be adopted. I now call upon the province to cast their votes. And when called upon to do so, heads of delegation must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. We'll do so in alphabetical order. We'll start with the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape iyavuma sihlalo.
Eastern Cape agrees. Free State?
Free State supports the report.
Free State supports the report. Gauteng?
Gauteng in favor, Chairperson.
Gauteng in agreement. KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka sihlalo.
KwaZulu-Natal supports. Limpopo?
Limpopo iyayithekha report.
Limpopo iyayithekha report. Thank you very much. Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga support the report.
Mpumalanga supports the report. Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support the report.
Northern Cape supports the report. Northwest?
Bokoni Buphirima ba ya amogela modulasetulo.
Bokoni Buphirima ya amogela. Western Cape?
Support. Western Cape supports the report.
Western Cape supports the report. Thank you very much. Voting is now closed. All 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. I now put the question in respect of the 5th order. The question is that the report be adopted. Before we proceed to voting, I shall allow provinces the opportunity to make that declaration of the vote in terms of Rule 71, if they so wish. Any declarations? None in the House. We shall now proceed to voting on the question, and the question is that the report be adopted. I now call upon the provinces to cast their votes. And when called upon, heads of delegations must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. Again, we'll do so in alphabetical order. We'll start with the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape iyavumelana nereport sihlalo.
Eastern Cape supports. Free State?
Free State vote in favor of the report.
Free State votes in favor. Gauteng?
Gauteng in favor of the report.
Gauteng in favor. KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka umbiko sihlalo.
KwaZulu-Natal supports. Limpopo?
Limpopo iyayithekha report ebadilong ka bokgware.
Limpopo supports. Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga support the report.
Mpumalanga supports the report. Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support the report, Honorable Chair.
Northern Cape supports the report. Northwest?
Agreed, Chair.
Northwest agrees with the report. Western Cape?
Agrees.
Again, Western Cape agrees. Thank you very much. Voting is now closed. All 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with Section 65 of the Constitution. Thank you very much. We now put the question on the sixth order. The question is that the report be adopted. And before I proceed to voting, I shall allow provinces an opportunity to make declarations of the vote in terms of Rule 71, if they so wish. Any declarations? Western Cape.
Honourable members, the allocation of the national fiscus to local government has been hovering around the 9% mark for the last few years. The state of local government is a clear indication that this is not adequate, and National Treasury has reacted to this by moving upwards towards 9.6% in the medium term. Chair, this is like placing a band-aid on a shark bite. The ability of local government to collect the revenue due to it has become increasingly more difficult as the unemployment rate of the country increases, and there are resultantly less and less people able to pay their rates and taxes and pay for the electricity and water consumption and refuse removal and sewage procession. Add to that the increasing burdens placed on local government by the unfunded mandates by the mandate creep, and the realities of frontline services delivery start to become apparent. It is no secret that many municipalities lack the skills to implement the financial controls needed to ensure accurate billing and revenue collection. However, even those that can do this are finding the environment increasingly difficult to navigate due to tough financial choices. The result is that short-term survival trade-offs are made, but they have long-term repercussions. The decision to not spend money maintaining the sewer network in Mfuleni has come back to haunt the entire country as a cost of now resurrecting a totally defunct system and rehabilitating the environment that has been damaged is immense, too immense for the municipality, and the burden will fall to the national fiscus. The decision to not spend money preventing land invasions has also now brought massive complications, with the cost of implementing services on already settled land being upwards of 3 times as expensive as delivering services in a planned and structured manner. The 9% is just not enough. 9.6% is not much better. A lot more needs to be done. The report is not supported. I thank you. Chairperson, as I'm standing and reading this declaration, I also want to remind you that the report has not been read.
Please repeat that again.
Was it read? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
When does this?
Thank you very much. Any other declaration? Yes, Bobo.
Thank you, Chairperson. The ANC support the report of the Select Committee on Appropriation on the conditional grants allocation to provinces and local government. We acknowledge the proposed allocation of 48.4% of the available non-interest expenditure to national departments, 42% to provinces, and 9.6% to local government over the next 3 years. We share the committee concerns that the allocation to local government is still inadequate and the below inflation transfers to provinces and municipalities in the MTEF period. We also support the committee's recommendation calling on the National Treasury and COPTA together with their provincial counterparts and SALGA, who must work together to ensure that suitable, qualified, and experienced individuals are appointed in the finance unit at municipalities. With the strange bedfellows, the EFF, DA, Freedom Front Plus, running some of the largest metros in the country, driving their agenda and reversing the progressive policies of the ANC. We need to be more vigilant about the additional allocation to local government. We need to use oversight tools to ensure that the right-wing work bloc does not undermine the national objectives of the transformation and social justice. The institutional challenges facing local government have to be resolved in order to ensure that investment in the local economic increases in order to create jobs and reduce unemployment. The allocation must also help to integrate our towns and cities. And this House must demand of the DA-led city of Cape Town to extend my city bus services to all the working class areas instead of the currently skewed distribution to the Blueberg and Milnerton areas that are DA strongholds. We cannot tolerate apartheid spatial development to persist in the Western Cape. The Western Cape is in South Africa and will remain so, regardless of the DA, Freedom Front Plus, EFF coalition's wishes. I thank you, Chairperson.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mama Khan. We'll now try and find out again if there's any other declaration. Any other declaration? None. Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to voting on the question. And the question is that the report be adopted. And I now call upon the provinces to cast their votes. And when called upon, heads of delegation must indicate whether they vote in favor, against, or abstain. We'll do so in alphabetical order, starting with the Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape, report.
Eastern Cape, class report. Support. Free State?
Free State votes in favor of the report.
Support the report. Gauteng?
Gauteng in favor, Chairperson.
Gauteng in favor of the report. KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal iyayeseka
sihlalo. Limpopo?
Limpopo support the report.
Limpopo support the report. Mpumalanga?
Mpumalanga support the report.
Mpumalanga supports the report. Northern Cape?
Northern Cape support the report, Honorable Chair.
Northern Cape supports the report. Northwest?
Northwest support the report, Chair.
Northwest supports the report. Western Cape?
Western Cape does not support the report.
Western Cape is against. Voting is closed. 8 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report adopted in accordance with section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable delegates, please allow me to deal with the voting procedure to be followed when dealing with votes on the adjustment appropriation bill. Each delegate, including special delegates, shall have 1 vote. And I'm informed that there will be no calls for division. Where there is no call for division, a vote shall be carried and we shall proceed to the next vote. Where a party wishes to object to a vote, that objection shall be noted. A delegate wishing to call for division must draw the attention of the chair to that fact. In terms of the rules, a call for division must be supported by at least 4 delegates. A delegate who wishes to make a declaration of vote must raise his or her hand or use the raise your hand icon. Once recognized, the delegate should indicate his and or her name, party, and do the declaration of the vote. I will now allow delegates who might be in the waiting room for the first votes, 30 seconds to join in the House. In respect of the votes following thereafter, 15 seconds will be provided to join the House. No delegate shall be allowed to access whilst voting is in progress. Once the question is put, delegates who wish to cast their votes must do so by raising their hands. Delegates must keep their hands raised until voting closes. Procedural staff shall tally the votes. Party representatives may also be allowed to verbally confirm the number of votes from their parties. Where the raise your hand icon was used, the table shall lower all hands after every vote. If a delegate is disconnected whilst voting takes place, the vote of the delegate shall be ascertained and the record shall be amended accordingly. We will now proceed to the seventh order. Consideration of votes and schedules, adjustments, appropriation bill B20-2021. I now put vote one, the presidency. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. Maximum minutes again is 3 minutes per declaration. And the parties are EFF and the ANC. Any declarations?
Thank you, Chairperson of the Council. Chair, the EFF rejects this budget votes presidency with the contempt it deserves. The COVID pandemic has exposed the leadership of the ruling party, and in so doing brought to the fore a number of underlying weaknesses, corruption being on the top. The inability to steer the wheel during the difficult times of COVID, mismanagement of COVID funds, inability to root out corruption, but rather rewarding those close to the president with high positions. We speak about this, Chairperson, because the EFF is the only party in this council which contributed large sum amounts to the cost of curbing COVID-19. The presidency is incompetent, Chair. Therefore, we reject this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let us remind ourselves that what we have to consider is the approval of an adjustment on a vote that supports a program towards the achievement of the electoral mandate, a vote that has to vote to support the enhancing the integrity of the state through planning, coordination, oversight, mobilization, and support. Political rhetoric that lacks evidence and facts does not address the content of the actual adjustment and is misplaced in the work of the NCOP. Such comments belong to the abstract and ill-informed opinions, whereas the Council has to deal with the concrete facts, the reality of the situation. The mandate of the presidency is to ensure that the president can execute the constitutional responsibilities in leading and galvanizing government and society to implement the electoral mandate. The vote provides support for the presidency to oversee the implementation of the electoral mandate, the National Development Plan, and the 2029 to 2024 medium-term strategic framework. In carrying this out over the medium term, presidency will focus on providing leadership and support on the implementation of the economic reconstruction and recovery and advancing South Africa's regional and global interests. The adjustment that we are being asked to approve today deals with changes as a result of operational consequences since the February budget. Besides the adjustment as a consequence of wage bill adjustments, the adjustment responds to the consequence of COVID on programs of the presidency, which had to cut back due to the risk-adjusted strategy. Therefore, 2.9 million that had to be rolled over on the implementation of action plans to address gender-based violence has nothing to do with lack of capacity, but rather is a response to COVID environment. The additional rollover of 2.2 million for compensation of employees, again, is a consequence of the same environmental conditions. All these adjustments do not suggest any material impact on GBV program and the performance of presidency, but rather GBV program remains in place and is being implemented. The performance of the presidency will be enhanced through these adjustments. ANC support the adjusted vote. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mike. The vote is therefore agreed to, and the objections of the DA, FF Plus are noted. We'll then move on to vote 3, cooperative governance. I now put vote 3, cooperative governance, and I've been informed that the following parties would like to make the declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. EFF, FF Plus, DA, ANC. Any declaration in the House? None. Declarations on the platform? None. We'll then proceed.
Chairperson, Honorable Visser wants to make a declaration.
Please proceed, Lund.
Chairperson, I also have a declaration.
Where are we now? Let's have one party at a time. Let's start with the EFF. EFF? No. Let's go to FF.
No, Chairperson. I've raised my hand, Chairperson. Can I proceed?
Zandamela, please proceed. Zandamela, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, for more than 2 decades, the intervention by provincial government in municipalities have not worked. The overall intervention system in local government needs a complete overhaul. Chairperson, local government has collapsed. Only 8% of municipalities are functional, and they are all district municipalities where there's no actual service delivery. Service delivery is the reality that we do not have local government, and that sphere of government has completely collapsed, and it is one sphere of government when that was supposed to work, because when people are talking about government, they talk about that local government and that sphere of government, to be precise. Chairperson, when our people want water, electricity, sanitation, infrastructure, they want it from their municipalities and are core phase of service delivery. The current design, Chairperson, of the Division of Revenue Act that is used to allocate money between spheres of government and between municipalities is based on these false assumptions. The reality is that more than 10 million are unemployed, and that those that are employed, they earn very little, and hence these are the people that are supposed to be paying services and make sure that there's improvement in the revenue in the municipalities. With each year that passes, municipalities have descended deeper and deeper into state of chaos. If we do not change the division of revenue bill, our municipalities will never be financially sound. Instead, we will continue to see hopeless disillusionment and frustration marked by service delivery, protest, violent crimes, and corruption. Instead of solving problems of poverty, eliminate inequality, and reshape our society, our municipalities do not have capacity, and everything is outsourced through tenders. The ANC has failed to take a firm political decision to impose strict financial controls, quality management, and good government. The EFF government in municipalities, the only government that will benefit our people, especially the previously disadvantaged. The EFF is the only government that will expose maladministration. It is only the EFF that has the practical plan of land and job in all the municipalities. The EFF does not support this. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Detroit.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Chair, as I mentioned in December 2019, local government is supposed to be the backbone of the economy, the beacon of hope, the foundation of good governance, and the template of excellence. Instead, Chair, it's the opposite. It's the blueprint of the moral fiber of cadres and corrupt politicians that carefully planned local government into an unsightly heap of ruin with its distinctive, no pun intended, smell of rotten effluent. The number of unsustainable municipalities in the country are increasing, Chair. Only time will tell how successfully newly appointed councillors will be in playing their oversight role in managing dilapidated municipalities with the challenge of the previous deployed cadres in municipal structures. The recently adopted systems bill that will hold municipal managers and managers directly accountable is welcomed and a step in the right direction. It is of the utmost importance, Chair, that powers be devolved to local municipalities, since it's proven that amalgamated municipalities does not work, just as the one plan concept will not work, and Parliament can't micromanage municipalities. Implement consequence management in local government, root out corruption, prioritize developmental projects, and plan ahead. Appoint people on the basis of qualification, Chair, not race or political affiliation. Voorsitter, dit is belangrik dat daar ten minste 8% van die munisipale begrotings aan infrastruktuur en instandhouding spandeer moet word, sonder om areas waar dienstegelde tradisioneel gehef word af te skeer. Hierdie areas moet juis in stand gehou word om volgehoue getroue vordering te verseker. Die enigste manier om investering in munisipaliteite te lok, is om toe te sien dat hierdie areas visueel aantreklik is, regulering effectief werk en daar voldoende konstante watervoorsiening is en betroubare elektrisiteitstoevoer met werkende straatligte, wat bydra tot veilige omgewing. Hierdie begroting laat op die oomblik veel te wense na, voorsitter, en die VF+ kan dit nie ondersteun nie. Dankie.
Thank you very much. Honorable Professor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable members, the adjustment budget makes little amendment to the amounts allocated to COGTA, other than the amounts required to compensate employees following the backing down of the state's position on the wage bill. The disappointment comes in when one considered the missed opportunities in Program 3, which relates to institutional development. The whole country talks about the poor state of local government. Our own Deputy Minister was amazed that by the end of their term, 62% of the councillors still can't use a computer, without seeing the irony that this is her own department that should be remedying this. The election result was a clear and resounding statement from voters that they are sick and tired of ANC-style local government. Meanwhile, the minister has been so focused on banning cigarettes and enforcing a state of disaster that it is past its sell-by date that she has forgotten that she is accountable for local government. The buck stops with her. But let us also focus on the traditional affairs part of the department. The deaths of 27 initiates already in the current season cannot go without response. Minister, our people are dying because your department cannot protect them with appropriate and enforced regulations that will ensure that Ulwaluko happens according to the right tradition and is not hijacked by young thugs trying to make a quick buck by kidnapping boys and taking them through an initiation without the proper oversight of traditional leaders. This department needs to remember what it was designed for. We reject the budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed to Honorable Dodovu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chair, the ANC stands to support Vote 3. We believe that the adjusted appropriation captures the essence of the mandate of a developmental state at local sphere, which mobilize both market and non-market stakeholders towards a developmental agenda addressing the quadruple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, as well as indeed addressing the problems associated with corruption. We welcome the commitment to resolve challenges confronting the Community Works Program through the newly introduced implementation policy. This remains one of the innovative programs to address poverty, and develop local skills base in our communities. The department should deepen the implementation of the district development model to reinforce quality service delivery and ensure that there is vibrant economic activity in our regions. We also call upon the department to ensure that the Disaster Management Center appropriately improves spending to ensure that municipalities which have been ravaged by the impact of COVID-19 pandemic are indeed addressed and they receive the necessary relief from the government. We congratulate SALGA, MISA, the department, as well as the CRL Rights Commission, as well as the Demarcation Board to achieve clean audits. And we also call upon the department to break its stagnation on qualified audit opinion and progress towards a clean audit, which is so much required. The department, as the ANC, we also say it must, as a matter of urgency, finalize and table to Parliament the bill relating to the intergovernmental interventions in terms of Section 100 and Section 139 of the Constitution. This will be a key milestone for cooperative governance and ensure a civil-less government, through which the constitutional ideals of cooperation in good faith and mutual trust will be realized among the different spheres of government. It is in that context, Honorable Chairperson, that we say as the ANC, we support this vote. We must go all out because we have a vision of building communities together, and that must continue. And therefore, based on that, as the ANC, we support vote 3 of this bill, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable members, the vote is therefore agreed to. The objection of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yes.
The DA calls for a division, please.
The DA calls for a division. Let's see if you muster the required number of hands. Yes. We shall at this point we shall at this point proceed and
National Chairperson.
Yes, just a minute.
Can we must vote be noted voting in favor? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed to then voting. I guess everybody's in the house and in the system. The question is that this vote be agreed to. So we'll proceed to finding out those who want to vote in favor. Please raise your hands. Resolution vote in favor.
Chairperson Moshodi vote in favor.
Yes, noted, Shodi.
To solve for one. Advocate, the first part of it was on Moshodi and the room. No longer call the name of presiding officer. Must dedicate 2 hours for China and Moshodi. Huh? Where's Matangu? You are the weak. Call Matangu. How does it present something here and behave out of order?
But Chief Whip, you are Rasa.
I don't know why not. Thank you very much. You can lower your hands. We'll now move on to those who want to vote against. Please raise your hands and keep them there.
Must do this in a 60. If she's outside,
I guess the counting is done in the House at least. And I'm sure the table is concluding the counting of those who are in the system. Can we have those who are abstaining? Yes.
Can I make a proposal for time purposes that we do divide the House like we do normally in a normal sitting, before COVID, because it will make it much easier with the counting as well, that you automatically can look in terms.
No, we can quickly do that. So can we have the ANC moving this side?
Those ones must move to the left.
No, they don't think it's that complicated. They think it's simple and straightforward. Okay. Can we have those who are abstaining indicating their vote? Abstentions? Abstentions? None. Thank you very much. Voting is closed. We will now await the results. The results are here. In favor is 31, against 17, no abstentions. It's 31 for, 17 against, and no abstentions. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chair, it's my vote. Sorry, Honorable Chair.
Yes, first area.
I tried to put my vote in, but it didn't want to go in. So I just want to say that this was my vote noted.
And the train has left you at the station. Next time, thank you very much. We will now proceed to vote for government communication and information system. I put vote for consideration. And I've been informed that the following political parties would like to make declarations of the vote in terms of Rule 63, and that's the EFF and ANC. Honorable Mukause.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, the EFF rejects this budget vote for the contempt it deserves. This department is one of those departments which should have been in the forefront of government media programs and reaching out to the majority of South Africans, but we are not seeing that. This is one of the departments which allowed itself to be a vehicle of corruption. We have not seen any program from this department which seeks to empower South Africans with daily information except the known television channels. Chairperson, government print media is slowly fading, leaving rural areas uninformed on government programs. This clearly shows incompetence. Chairperson, therefore, we cannot support this adjustment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Matibe.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I rise to support budget vote. Since the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, Chairperson, this department has steered the ship in providing South Africans with credible and reliable information to protect themselves and those around them against this deadly pandemic. The department has consistently overperformed. In the first half of 2021-22, for instance, the GCIS provided 537 radio product services against an annual target of 616 graphic designs were provided against an annual target of 400. The department has conducted 959 community and stakeholder visits in the first half of the year against the annual target of 1,140. In its effort to promote COVID-19 vaccination campaign, inform citizens of government's plan, the department aligned 1,241 development projects government communication program in the first half of the financial year against the annual target of 1,140. More market events than expected have been held at Tusong Services Center. GCIS, in consultation with National School of Government, recently conducted a 2-day training program for Tusong Services Center champions in the Eastern Cape. Tusong centers are important component to the work of government in communities as they provide easy access of government information and services to communities. They bring government information closer to the people to promote access to opportunities. GCIS has also been getting clean audit reports for many years. For this reason, we are therefore of the view that additional allocation of 7.7 million to the vote will further enhance the good work of the department, as well as help broaden the scope of the department towards ensuring that even those who live in most remote areas of our country are able to receive government information, more so in relation to ever-evolving variants of COVID-19. Ngazvezvo, rine sadzangano la ANC rikotikedza budget vote for rikoliwo.
Thank you very much, Lord Matibe. The vote is therefore agreed to, and the objections of the EFF, FF Plus, and the TA are noted. Thank you very much. We now move on to vote 5. So I put vote 5 for consideration. That's Home Affairs. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declaration of vote in terms of Rule 63. And those parties are EFFDA and the ANC. Let's start with Honorable Zandamela. Zandamela? Zandamela, for some reason, it doesn't seem to be there. Honorable Sileku?
I'm here, Chairperson.
Yeah, please proceed.
No, thanks, Chairperson. Chairperson, the purpose of the mandate of the Department of Home Affairs is to determine and safeguard the identity and status of citizens, regulate immigration to ensure security, promote and develop and fulfill South African international obligations, improve client experience through leadership. All the above constitutional obligations are not adhered to by the department. A 40-year-old South African born Vincent from 112 in Bombela, Mpumalanga has not received his ID document to date. And this has since been reported with the department and nothing has been done. The department does not have the database of all the late registrations of birth. Chairperson, the minister has always been told about the queues in Home Affairs branches. No proper operational plan in place to decrease the long queues. The department is always offline, and that confirms the failure by the department to time frames, no records recorded, and follow up on queries reported. The department priorities in this financial year is to establish border management authority, just to make sure our fellow South Africans cannot move freely and continue in growing the African economy. There is no interlink from National Development Plan in confronting the challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. The law enforcement operation inspection indicator aiming to ensure that undocumented persons are documented and are not unlawfully employed in South Africa should not be used to block our fellow Africans to be denied an opportunity to find jobs. The modernization program of Home Affairs can reduce fraud and the cost of doing business by enabling e-government, which will attract more investment into the country. The department should address fraud, corruption, both within the department and at the border post. Consequence management should be implemented to address the challenges related to fraud and corruption. In the country, we are faced with a lot of unemployment, especially amongst the youth, yet the department is not creating jobs and there is no plan in place. The department should create sustainable quality jobs and grow the economy. The department is not playing any role in reducing unemployment. We should be having at least a number of students who are interns or in programs that will enable them to get training within the department. So basically, there's nothing happening in the department and there's no proper plan. The EFF does not support this vote. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable Sleku.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable members, fellow South Africans. Having an identity document and birth certificate makes life easier, especially during the time of the pandemic, as it allows a person to access assistance from the government. When a person does not have any identification, it's frustration on frustration. The Department of Home Affairs has been battling with extremely long queues for years now. Oftentimes, these result in South Africans standing an entire day in the queue and not being helped at the end of it, which is unacceptable when majority are not by the means to take the day off from work to waste at Home Affairs. One would have expected the department to make the war on queues priority number one. An additional amount of 138.8 million is allocated for higher salary increases that the main budget did not provide for. Ngelishwa, funds go to millionaire managers at the Border Management Authority. Our internal immigration enforcement is underfunded. South African school children remain undocumented in the land of their birth because there is less mobile units to take services to the poor and the most vulnerable. The frontline officers are still confronted by network downturn challenges. In this regard, funding is more required in these critical areas of the department. Honorable Chair, ongelukkig spreek hierdie begroting nie die kritiese areas nie. Die DA ondersteun nie hierdie begroting nie. Baie dankie en kosie. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sleku. Honorable Ngosi. Yes, there may be a bit of a problem there. The speaker has indicated in one part of the guide as gossip, but we should be Honorable Mkiva. Honorable Mkiva.
Chair, they're struggling to unmute, same way Mashodi is struggling to find their raise hand function.
Yes.
Yeah, of course, those who do not raise hands seems to be Honorable Lond is very out of order.
Yes, I'm sure they must know that they should be orderly.
We take the proceedings very seriously, and we should not impact on the process through disturbing the orders by the proceeding officer, the presiding officer. In an event, members are unavailable to take the opportunity, we should proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. We will then proceed. This vote is therefore agreed to, and the objection of the JEFF and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. The next vote is vote 6, so I put vote 6, international relations and cooperation. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. EFF and the ANC, Plenary and Dango. So we'll start with Honorable T. Plenary. Honorable Plenary.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My apologies for the video. The position of South Africa and the continent of Africa needs to be constantly evaluated with the shifting patterns of global order, such as the development of conservative internationalism, as petified by US, the dominance of Britain with its share of troubles in relations to its continued participation in the European Union. The reality is that South Africa and the African continent continue to look insignificant and without any meaningful voice in the international affairs. The African Union remains largely toothless, visionless, and without any strong political direction from member states. There remains an urgent need for revolutionary forces to unite and reinvigorate the timeless dream of Pan-African unity and development. The current arrangement of each country looking and pushing by all means for its own interest is neither assisting South Africa or the African continent. This in return is further weakening the African continent in the face of international forces. COVID-19 has exposed the fact that there is a global emergency of extra statutory, extra political forces that seek to control and influence both the state and the ruling party. Sovereign credit downgrading South Africa to junk status, even though South Africa was doing much better than other bigger economies in terms of managing COVID. This was a clear sign of how we do not matter to the international world. Attempts to reform the United Nations have been fervently fought by the developing countries. The United Nations Security Council, the most powerful structure of the United Nations, remains untransformed up to date. There need to be concerted, purposeful efforts of social engineering to ensure that African people from across the continent and in the diaspora are united economically, socially, and culturally. The African Continent Free Trade Agreement must be a vehicle for a program of massive inward industrialization of the continent to ensure that Africa becomes the center of manufacturing of African minerals and other resources. The AFF, therefore, does not support this bill, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dango.
Chairperson, thank you very much. We welcome the adjusted appropriation for the budget vote number 6 of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. It is encouraging at the time of the tabling of the adjustment appropriation bill
the department has achieved over half its target for 2021. The achievement is attained despite the challenging environment of our time in the field of international relations imposed by COVID-19 and the subsequent global lockdown. The global lockdown has, without doubt, impacted the advancement of foreign policy across the world. We applaud the innovative ways which have been initiated by the department and the actors in international relations to ensure that diplomacy is carried out in various platforms, especially virtual platforms. As the ANC, we reiterate our commitment to the building of a better Africa, a better world, and a better South Africa. This means that we firmly believe that the socio-economic development at global level can only thrive in a just and peaceful environment. We will play our oversight role as Parliament to ensure that our foreign policy principles continue to be advanced. And our foreign policy is based upon values and not only on interests. The ANC supports the Adjustment Appropriation Bill for the Budget Vote 6 of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dango. This vote is agreed to, and the objection from the DAEFF and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. We'll move on to vote 7. I now put vote 7 for consideration. That's National School of Government. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make a declaration vote in terms of Rule 63, EFF and the ANC. Let's start with Honorable Mkause. Honorable Mkause.
Chairperson, we are not declaring on this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Honorable Mteto. Honorable Mteto.
I'm the last one, Chair, on the list.
Oh. No, thank you very much. The vote is agreed to, and the objections of the DAEFF and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next vote. I now put vote 8 for consideration, National Treasury. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make a declaration of votes in terms of Rule 63, EFF, DA, and the ANC. We'll start with Honorable Mletsane. Honorable Mletsane.
Thank you, Chair. The medium-term speech budget presented by the Finance Minister was meant to provide the content for the budget that will be presented early in 2022 to outline the government efforts to improve the economy of this country. The Statistics South Africa has released the report that shows that the unemployment has increased from 34.4 to 34.9% in the third quarter of 2021. As South Africans, we are exposed to the electricity blackouts, while the president is dreaming about the bullet trains, electric cars, and the smart cities. The reality is that youth of about 3.4 million of age 15 to 24 years are not employed. Others are still owing the universities. The outstanding fee, others are still owing the universities the outstanding fees, and they cannot obtain their official qualifications. That means there is no future for them. The wages of million workers continues to be less compared to the petrol price, food, housing, and education that are rising up. The future is dark for them. There is no way the economy of this country can grow in a meaningful way. Only the rise in poverty, unemployment, and inequality. EFF doesn't support this bill. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Honorable Ryder. Okamp. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, the Constitution in Section 216 places a burden on the National Treasury to ensure expenditure control in each sphere of government and further states that the National Treasury must enforce compliance. The Treasury is therefore culpable for the situation in which the country finds itself, a situation where the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, were recently reported as being exasperated by the lack of promised progress in South Africa. The IMF once again stressed the importance of speeding up the implementation of pro-growth and investment structural reforms by the South African government in order to improve the country's fiscal trajectory and economic fortunes. The report was practically a cut and paste exercise of their last warning, though with way more adjectives this time around. I want to quote from the article, Honorable Chairperson. It says, the IMF officials once again said the government is moving too slowly on implementing structural reforms on energy, embracing renewable energy sources, on telecommunications by releasing new frequency spectrum, transport with the opening of ports to private sector investors, reducing red tape for businesses, addressing systemic corruption, and paring down the degree of state ownership in South Africa, close quote. Instead, Honorable Chairperson, we have got an energy minister actively promoting environmentally harmful fossil fuel extraction. We've got a communications minister still dithering around the digitalization project and wrapping the bandwidth auction up so tightly that legal action continues. And we've got a transport minister who makes budget announcements 3 months before the finance minister does it. This is to name but a few of our ministerial failures in this regard. The Adjustment Appropriation Bill does little to address these issues, with huge vehemence and shifts way above the guidelines. Now, while some of this may be justified with the new minister moving in and making some bold changes, and with money being shifted to be better used at SARS, the volume of vehemence brings planning and certainty into question. At this point, Honorable Chairperson, we must note that SARS must be singled out as their performance continues to exceed targets. However, the major issue is that Treasury needs to focus more of its time, energy, and of course of their budget on doing what the Constitution tells it to do. It must ensure expenditure control and it must enforce compliance. The adjustment to Treasury's appropriation does not do this, and nor do they address the IMF's concerns. The Democratic Alliance therefore cannot support this adjustment. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Honorable Yunus Karim. Honorable Karim.
Thank you, Chairperson. Firstly, in response to the EFF, nobody is suggesting smart cities, bullet trains, and electric cars at the expense of water, electricity, and in his case, he mentions university fees. Nobody's suggesting that. In fact, the EFF makes much, having a younger composition of members in Parliament, about the need for the 4IR, Fourth Industrial Revolution. So we can't simply ignore what's going on globally and how we're going to fit into the global economy and how we can ensure greater productivity and a new workforce that has the necessary skills and so on. And I agree with the DA that not enough progress on structural reforms. In fact, our party does in Parliament. We've been pushing for structural reforms to occur, but it's not true that there's no progress whatsoever. In fact, there's been quite significant progress in the last 9 months and more against very difficult COVID and other circumstances. In fact, the spectrum issue, as we know, is being managed in the way it is simply because the private sector, once again, is focusing on profits above social need. all they're concerned about is to get the best deal in the spectrum. The government's attitude is a correct one. We stand by it. I'm sure as parliamentary committees in Parliament, and not least of all the Communications Committee that knows more about these things than we do in finance. But actually, the spectrum can't just be auctioned off to the super rich. As it is, we have a very high level of monopoly in the telecom sector. And so we need some sort of measure of a balance between the needs of the emerging entrepreneurs and those who are established. We need to bring down the cost of data and so on. On the matter of national treasury, we note, for example, the EFF says nothing, that in the appropriations bill, Treasury has received an additional 7 billion to stabilize the land bank, and that's around land issues, which the EFF claims to be the big champion of, but at least in rhetoric. And then we must note the 1 billion in the 2021-22 year for the improvement of ICT systems in response to Mr. Willie outcome and capacity building in SARS. Now, SARS is doing a good job, Chairperson, given where it was 2 years ago. It's not going to change overnight. It's lost a lot of skills. We as Parliament must be held responsible. Insofar as compliance and controls is concerned, Mr. Outcome is correct that National Treasury is not doing enough. But how much can National Treasury do? Only a little bit more. Each department's meant to do what it's supposed to do with the money allocated for the programs that it's supposed to implement those funds for. Now, if it's not just the executive that will be held to account for that failure, or National Treasury in particular, it's us as Parliament. Are we, not least the Finance Committee, but all committees, are we doing what we should be doing in oversight? If we were doing our oversight effectively, Chairperson, not least our own committee, not least myself as a chairperson, then compliance and control will be ensured. You can't leave that job simply to the Department of the Finance Minister, National Treasury. We all have to do our job. It's a reflection on us, Chairperson. We worried, though, that in the current adjustments appropriation, Treasury loses 8.676 million. It's critical that this reduction doesn't diminish the commitment to the National Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, including by supporting vital economic reforms and advancing the transformation of the economy. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The vote is agreed to. The objection of the DAEFF and FF Plus are noted. The next vote is vote 9. So I put vote 9, planning, monitoring, and evaluation for consideration. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make a declaration of vote in terms of Rule 63, and those are EFF and the ANC. Honorable Plenary. Honorable Plenary. Not there. So we'll proceed to Honorable Nsube. Honorable Nsube.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the Council, the Chief Whip and members. The ANC moves in support of vote 9 of planning, monitoring and evaluation. Planning, monitoring and evaluation is essential to ensure that government programs and policies is effectively implemented through the facilitation of the implementation of the National Development Plan. There is a need for government to assess its progress and ensure that departments are aligned to the strategic and annual performance plans. Monitoring and evaluation is a crucial to assess the effectiveness of government in all spheres of government, particularly in local government, provided the state of our municipalities. Noting that part of the departmental entities included Brand South Africa, the department need to assist Brand South Africa to evaluate its APP and ensure the indicators and the targets are aligned to the APP. Greater attention by the department must be assessed to provide for better planning and coordination, coherence, particularly the provincial and local government. The appropriation needs to assist provincial government to speak to issues of DPMA picked up when conducting monitoring and impact assessments in provinces, provided that provinces receive additional allocations in equitable share. to assist provinces in the wage agreement. DPME will also appropriate accordingly in their programs to monitor the implementation of the wage agreement. The department, as monitoring and evaluation department, should also guide the provinces to appropriate funds to programs that require attention or in areas that need to be improved, be it unfilled vacancies, improving internal controls, including the additional fund allocated to support the presidential employment initiative and funding that had been allocated to address service delivery infrastructure funding, such as water, particularly in municipalities, to ensure that is implemented. Honorable Chairperson of the Council, the ANC move to support vote 9 of planning, monitoring and evaluation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, Chair, it was the network that gave me problems.
Yes. We called you earlier on, but we'll allow you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the mission of this department is to facilitate, influence, and support effective planning and monitoring, evaluating government programs aimed at improving service delivery outcomes and impact on society. The reality is that this department has been the most meaningless department. Our municipalities from 2006 have provided just over 13.8 million consumer units of water, leaving millions still struggling to access water, which is the most basic need. There are still 44,434 people dependent on bucket system toilets in the country 27 years after freedom. Unemployment rate, which includes people who have stopped looking for work, have gone up to a staggering 44.4%, which is the highest in the world. Mortality rate has gone up to 9.494, a growth of 0.27%. That is a very scary situation. And all of that is happening under the nose of this department. The huge levels of corruption happening under this under the watch of this department, which includes millions of rands meant for poverty alleviation during the pandemic, were stolen, all under the watch of this department. We either take drastic measures to ensure that we steer our country to the right direction, as it is clear that people who have been given mandate to rule our country have dismally failed to do so. Therefore, the EFF does not support this bill. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Well, thank you very much, Honorable Plenary. This vote is agreed to. The objections of the DAEFF and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. I now put vote 10, public enterprises, for consideration. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of votes in terms of Rule 63, and those are EFF, DA, and the ANC. So we'll start with Honorable Mkause. Honorable Mkause.
Honorable Arnold will take it.
Honorable Mkause, if you can just repeat what you've just said now.
Honorable Arnold will do the declaration.
Okay. We'll move on.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Nana. Honorable Nana.
Chairperson.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the Department of Public Enterprises aims and mission is to drive investment, job creation, and to provide decisive strategic direction to state-owned entities. As the economic freedom fighters, we are well aware that well-run, effective and efficient SOEs, job creation, especially for the youth. Our chairperson, South Africans has lost hope in the ability of the African National Congress and their useless minister to lead the kind of change needed at this moment in history of this country. Your numerous promises to stabilize state-owned entities, including a new bill to govern SOEs, will not solve the challenges of mismanagement and corruption. There is no political will to turn around SOEs. Instead, the ultimate goal is to privatize these entities for the benefit of white monopoly capital. Now, Chairperson, it is clear for all the citizens to see that the empty promises of the government of a new dawn, a new era to manage these state-owned entities has resulted in the collapse of these entities. We therefore reject this adjustment budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Honorable Nana.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, Honorable members. All of us in this House must commend the Minister of Finance, Honorable Enoch Godongwan, for his hardline stance on bailouts to SOEs. And this is shown in the budget that there are no plans to pour our money that we do not have into a dark bottomless pit called state-owned enterprises. It is unfortunate, though, that tens of billions have already been sucked from the national fiscus with no real outcomes to show for it. The message is loud and clear to all working in the SOE environment that they must either shape up or shape out. Honorable members, the truth is the policy of placing SOEs at the center of economic growth and job creation has not only spectacularly failed, but instead brought down our economy with them. And they are one of the major contributors to our ever ballooning rate of unemployment. They are an antithesis of what they were intended to achieve or to establish. Without exception, all our SOEs have been a burden to the fiscus and the taxpayer by asking for one bailout after the other, by asking for one government guarantee after another. Boards are regularly changed, and so are the SOE and so are the CEOs, as and when a new minister comes to office. It is about time as the nation that we should start counting our losses, close shop and move on. In good conscience, the Democratic Alliance cannot support this draft budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is going to be Honorable Bibi.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable Arnold, our minister is not useless. He is useful. The ANC supports the adjustment appropriate bill and vote 10 on the Department of the Public Works or of the Public Enterprises, sorry. The department's self-objective goals are to drive investment, productivity, and transformation in our economy. It does this through its portfolio of the state-owned enterprises as the key enablers of economic development. SOEs barely work or are unable to fulfill their functions following the combined impact of the state capital legacy, as well as the economic constraints and the unfavorable business conditions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the ANC-led government has prioritized the restructuring of SOEs. Honorable Arnold, listen carefully. Given that economic reconstruction and recovery plan can be achieved through their strategic interventions in our economy. Our minister is not useless, he's very useful. The department has the total appropriated budget of 77.6 billion for the financial year ended 31st March 2021. The appropriated budget was informed by the ANC-led government assessment of the strategic relevance of SOEs. On the whole, the government has been quite successful as it spent 77.5 billion rands, that is 99.9% of the appropriated budget of the 77.6 billion. The majority of this spending was allocated as follows. ESCOM received carefully. Listen, ESCOM received 56 billion for payment of government guaranteed debt. SAA received 18 billion in support of the business rescue plan and settlement of the government guaranteed debt. SA Express received 143.4 million rands for settlement of the government guaranteed debt, and Denel received 576 million for settlement of debt and recapitalization. Transfers to SOEs will enable them to be conducive to the realization of the ethical developmental state and the implementation of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan. The rapid expansion of energy generation capacity is one of the priorities interventions of the ERRP. The construction of ESCOM into 3 entities of generations, transmission, and distribution will yield an efficient, reliable, and competitive energy system. This is the reason why ESCOM was responsible for the lion's share of the transfers to SOEs. Furthermore, SAA has resumed its flights to take advantage of the growing demand of December, regardless of the economic constraints imposed by the COVID.
Your time is up, honorable member.
Indication. ANC-led government supports the adjustment appropriation bill and vote 10 request. House approves the bill, vote 10. Department of the.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The vote is agreed to, and the objections of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. I now put vote 11, Public Service and Administration, for consideration. And I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of votes in terms of Rule 63, EFF and the ANC. So we'll start with Honorable Arnold.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Chairperson, an effective, efficient, and ethical public service is a central element when it comes to building a capable state. If we are to build a more capable state, you need to seriously and urgently address the scandals by certain public servants in the acts of corruption. Public servants are entrusted with managing state resources for the benefit of the public and in guarding against resources being misused and abused. It is now common knowledge that many of those who drive acts of corruption in the state are managers who commit these acts at the behest of politicians. The experience of our people is that in many areas, the state is failing them and that the public service charter is not worth the paper it is written on. Being a public servant demands dedication, selflessness, professionalism, and commitment. But chairperson, under your political administration, the lines of accountability at most of the senior levels has become blurred. Now, to promote and ensure a culture of pride and ethics in the public service, we must remove the head and replace the ANC in 2024 at all costs. We therefore do not support this adjusted vote. I thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Muima.
Thank you, National Chairperson. Allow me on behalf of the African National Congress to rise and express support to vote 11 of the Public Service and Administration, particularly given the strategic focus that this vote is dealing with in furtherance of the strategy that we have undertaken as a ruling party to resolve challenges and difficulties in the public service. And we made a commitment that indeed there are a number of areas that will be following. One, to have an integrated single public service that has all the elements of a developmental and capable state that is able to address the issue of corruption, ensuring that we improve the technical capability and capacity and performance and accountability and governance in the public service. And the need to ensure that quality of service delivery is beyond reproach. More than that, Chair, the importance of values and ethics in the public service is of paramount importance as it is an underlying pillars of a single public service where we put people at the center of government and we put people first. Chair, the Auditor General has raised a number of areas that has to be addressed by the department in terms of improving our internal control in the public service and administration so that we are able to mitigate what has been flagged as the unauthorized expenditure in the year under review. There were additional allocations for the wage agreements to assist provinces to implement wage agreement of the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council for 2021-2022 financial year. Indeed, our recommendation is that the department should foster the process of ensuring that provinces are assisted where it is necessary so that we mitigate challenges that the department is facing. But more than that, Chair, relative to the provinces deciding on how they wish to allocate portions of the conditional grants, prioritization must be made to matters requiring urgent attention, such as filling of senior management services vacant posts. And that funding should also facilitate the process of ensuring that we professionalize our public service in all the three spheres, precisely by virtue of the fact that professionalization of the public service and having a single public service that is aimed to address the challenges in the public service and improving the quality of service delivered throughout our three spheres across three arms of government is addressed. This will then benefit South Africa that is largely dependent on the ability of the ANC to deliver a professionalized, capable state. The ANC moving support of Vote 11, Chair.
Thank you very much. The vote is agreed to. The objections of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. I now put vote 12, Public Service Commission, for consideration. And I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. Those are EFF and the ANC. So we'll start with Honorable Mkause.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, the presence of the Public Service Commission in the public sector environment of the South African government is quite silent. It is not felt at all. We cannot have a body which only releases statements and no action. We cannot have a body which commemorates days like anti-corruption days, whilst the state it exists in is in rotten state. This commission exists in a state where public servants live far beyond their income. Scandalous, Chairperson. We cannot see any challenge by this commission to those corrupt officials who continues to roam around the PESAL system, the likes of Kusela Diko and many others. This commission cannot exist, Chairperson, in a state where money has been spent corruptly so, PPE scandals roaming the streets of public sector, and we don't feel them at all. Chairperson, the EFF cannot support this adjustment of the Public Service Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable E.R. Landsman. Honorable Landsman. Doesn't seem to be there. We'll then move on. This vote is agreed to, and the objection of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. Thank you very much. I now put vote 13, vote 13, Public Works and Infrastructure for consideration. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make declarations of vote in terms of Rule 63. EFF, FF Plus, DA, and the ANC. We'll start with EFF Honorable B.T. Matebula. Honorable Matebula.
Thank you very much, Chair. The EFF object with no declaration.
No, thank you very much. We move to the Honorable Debray. Honorable Debray.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, on May 25 this year, the Minister said in a speech, and I quote, "Infrastructure is about people having access to drinking water, having decent roads, and having a bridge to cross to get to school or work. It helps them to connect to the internet so that they can find more opportunities and access to critical government services like clinics, police stations, or courts. Infrastructure is about changing people's lives for the better." Close quote. Agbare voorsitter, hoewel het waar is wat die minister gesê het, sy het ongelukkig in 'n vanselfsprekende konteks gesê, asof dit iets is wat ons mense elke dag beleef. Dit was totaal onrealisties en uitvoering met die werklikheid. Na dekades van voortploeter sonder gevolge bestuur en leerbeloftes, begroting na begroting, is inwoners van Suid-Afrika slegter af as ooit tevore as dit kom by infrastruktuur. Millions don't have water to drink. Half-decent roads in South Africa would be an achievement, and the bridges crossed to get to schools are either half-built or collapsing. Our communities are suffering due to the lack of infrastructure, and this while the funds that are supposed to better their lives vanishes into a bottomless pit of wage increases, tender fraud and corruption, and total mismanagement of funds. In the Mangaung Metro, for example, communities suffer with little to no service delivery, where certain communities have access to water for less than 2 hours per day, if they are lucky, under a bankrupt municipality. But meanwhile, the Department of Public Works owes the municipality more than 700 million rand. It's 700 million rand that could have bettered the lives of thousands. Jaarliks sterf duisende mense op ons paaie as gevolg van die toestand daarvan. Miljoene het nie toegang tot basiese dienste soos skoon drinkwater of riolering nie. Ons staatsgeboue, museums en monumente is vervalle en geplunder. En dit alles as gevolg van hierdie wanfunksionerende departement. From hundreds of examples in the past, it is clear that this department is not firing on all cylinders and are unable to utilize their budgets properly. And unfortunately, that won't change until we start to hold officials accountable for their failures and hire competent and skilled officials based on merit instead of affirmative action. Until then, no budget, appropriation or adjustment will make any difference. So no one in good conscience can support this vote. Thank you, Speaker. Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Protasef.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Honourable Chairperson. Thank you. Honourable Chair, honourable members, there is an old saying, don't bite off more than you can chew. This adage is particularly relevant to the part of public works and infrastructure at present. Despite being the most delinquent landlord in South African history, with thousands of tenant buildings decaying with neglect, this department embraced with glee the concept of ISA, Infrastructure South Africa. While police stations fall apart, hospitals become cesspits of filth, and school children die in pit latrines, this minister hurtles around starry-eyed and eager to please the president with planning a ridiculous amount of gazetted, presidential strategic integrated projects, and then promptly runs into the brick wall that represents the chasm between naive hope and reality. Of the 55 infrastructure projects gazetted, only 4 have been completed and 15 are under construction. The rest are described with euphemisms like feasibility, under review, reconceptualization, and the old favorite, construction to start in 12 months. The main problem with all these projects, there is simply no money for them. In fact, the minister recently admitted that they erred, presenting their pipe dream wish list before ensuring it was funded. And so the begging bowl is handed around asking business to bail them out without any clear prospect of return. Despite all of this, Honourable Chairperson, the department is happily requesting 4 billion rand to employ all the staff at ISA to do all the planning of these unfunded projects. It is really a theatre of the absurd. The DA warns today that ISA faces the same slippery slope that is caught out in many a state-owned enterprise, a glorified employment agency that achieves little. For this reason alone, the DA cannot support this adjustment vote. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Team. The next speaker is Honourable Muima. Honourable Muima.
Honourable Mushodi, Chair.
Okay, Mushodi. Yes, okay. Mushodi.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable members. The ANC supported the Adjustment Appropriation Bill, Bill 2021, and vote number 13 of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure. The department and its entity is tasked with the important developmental mandate, which include optimizing the property portfolio of government, ensuring development in the construction and built environment, as well as the extended public works. Honourable Chairperson, program amongst others, the entity under the department, such as the IDT, which is being reproposed, also has important development function. The department has also been vested with Infrastructure SA, which works with the presidency on infrastructure development. Honourable Chairperson, given the importance of the mandate of the department, it is imperative that it is able to efficiently operate at a national and provincial level, effect its mandate. Honourable Chairperson, there has been underspending by the department of 193,345,000. The underspending in the department is largely due to the high level of vacancy in the department, and this matter needs to be urgently addressed. This results in underperformance of the department, and furthermore, it means that the department is unable to execute all its programs in an effective manner. Honourable Chairperson, this is confirmed by the fact that the department was only able to achieve 61% of its target. It is imperative that in the next financial year, the overarching legislation be drafted in the form of the Public Works Act and completed. It is pleasing to note that the department is implementing 10-point plan to address the underperformance of the department. Honourable Chairperson, the department received an unqualified audit report, and this is important, but it needs to ensure that the performance of all its entity improves. The department must be in a position to positively contribute infrastructure development in all provinces as part of the implementation of economic reconstruction and recovery plan. Supply chain management in the department and its entity remain a cause of concern, and heeded oversight is necessary as corruption has to be defeated. Corruption erodes the value of government spending. It is imperative that government achieve value of every rand that is spent. Honorable Chairperson, under current economic condition of low economic growth,
and your time is up.
As the ANC support the adjustment appropriation bill and vote number 13 of the Department of Public Works Infrastructure and request that the House approve the bill and vote number 13. I thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members.
Thank you very much. This vote is agreed to. The objections of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. We now move on to vote 14. I therefore put vote 14, statistics, South Africa, for consideration. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make the declaration of vote in terms of Rule 63, EFF, and the ANC. We'll start with Honorable Mukause. Honorable Mukause.
Chairperson, we do not support this budget without a declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable Njadu. Honorable Njadu. Njadu covered. Thank you very much. That takes us to the vote itself. The vote is agreed to, and the objection of the DA is noted. The next vote is vote 15, traditional affairs. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make the traditional vote in terms of Rule 63, EFF, and ANC. Honorable Zandamela. Zandamela seems not to be there. Zandamela? Not there? Oh, okay. Please proceed.
We won't vote for 15, Chairperson.
Just repeat because you couldn't hear properly. Please repeat. Honorable Zandamela? Okay.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Oh, okay. We'll move on. The next person to speak is Honorable Mkiva.
Zandamela is there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Zandamela?
Yes.
Let's get back to you, yeah.
No, thanks, Chairperson. I'm struggling a bit with network here, and I've also switched off my video. Chairperson, thanks, Chairperson. The majority of South Africans subscribe and align themselves with the institutions of traditional leaders and government should give full recognition on the role of traditional leaders. Chairperson, government should be working hand in glove with the traditional leaders, as well as contra lesser on diverse issues that include rural development, abolishment of cultural practices which promote and tolerate gender discrimination. The National House of Traditional Leaders has launched an Invest Rural Master Plan which seeks to optimize the rural industrial structure by availing over 1.5 million hectares of land. The key challenges in the program relate to the administration model, which will favor a selected few political connected to ANC NGOs. The remodeling should be able to identify and target community-based initiatives to unskill the participants in the key areas such as agriculture and paving of roads, fixing of potholes, fisheries, etc. In that, it will be providing employment to our people. The EFF government is the only government that will give full recognition to traditional leaders. The EFF, therefore, doesn't support this vote, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Zanda Mela. We now proceed to Honorable Mkiva. Honorable Mkiva. Mkiva. Gone. We'll move on. Let's move on to the actual vote itself. Just to say that it is agreed to, and there's there are objections that are noted from the DA, EFF, and FF+. The next vote is vote 16, basic education. I've been informed that the following parties would like to make a declaration of votes in terms of Rule 63. And those parties are DA, FF+, EFF, and the ANC. So we'll start with the Honorable Christians. Honorable Christians? Honorable Christians? Oh, okay. There you are. Please proceed.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Members, Honorable Minister, year after year, provinces fail in the timiest placement of learners at schools. Shortages of classrooms means overcrowding and places severe challenges on schools and their administration. This essentially has an impact on the quality of education delivered. The inability of provincial education departments to declare final post-establishments due to delays in securing and confirming availability of funds following budget cuts places a further burden on the administration of schools. The inability of the department to ensure that the chronic deterioration and aging of school infrastructure is dealt with is a huge concern for the country, as education is at the crux of our survival as a nation. For example, there are still more than 2,100 pit toilets in schools across the country, and more than 7,000 schools are still without fencing despite the escalation in school violence and outside threats. Additionally, mud and asbestos school infrastructure remains an enormous concern. All this despite the fact that the department has failed to use 1.1 billion rand from the infrastructure budget, as well as the underspending of the ACD, which has been a problem since its inception in 2011-2012, which in turn continues to delay the eradication of unsafe school infrastructure. Furthermore, 16 schools in Gauteng have failed to procure textbooks for 2022, and a further 22 schools across the country have not procured stationery due to fear of burglary over the holiday season. Mpumalanga province has no budget to procure textbooks, and the Northern Cape have been unable to verify whether they have procured sufficiently or not. Minister, with a huge backlog in provisioning for water, sanitation, infrastructure, as well as the procurement of textbooks and stationery, can the department confidently say that they are prepared for the 2022 academic year? And furthermore, has the goalpost now been shifted for eradicating pit toilets and mud schools? And if so, until when? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Honorable M.A.P. Debray. Honorable Debray.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, seeing as basic education is a starting point to uplift, it is shocking to think that this department fails our youth on so many levels. Quality basic education is the key to success for not only the individual, but for the future of our country as well. But unfortunately, quality education in South Africa is a distant dream at this stage, as it's evident if we look at the dropout rate of our schools in South Africa. News 24 reported last week that schools are severely overcrowded, with up to 70 learners per classroom with a single teacher, due to the lack of infrastructure and teachers. But at the same time, the department is hiring more than 270,000 unqualified assistants that provide no real relief or assistance at a cost of hundreds of millions of rands per month. Surely this is funds that could have contributed to extra classrooms, teachers, basic infrastructure and supplies. This once again shows that the department is out of touch with the needs of our youth and is incapable of managing the department in the best interest of our students and teachers. This is evident when looking at how the department failed at managing the education of our youth during the COVID pandemic. Months of classroom time were lost over the past 2 years, and changes made to the curriculum had no real positive effect. Instead, the department is now in a position where students are helped with up to 5% in order to pass. This creates a setback for the student as well as fellow classmates in the future, and once again at the cost of our youth's education. Clearly, this department is struggling in every way possible, and it would make no sense to support this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll proceed to the next speaker, Honorable Lihihi. Honorable Lihihi, please proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. The report on education spoke to school readiness, focusing on areas that should be aligned to the finding and recommendation benchmarked against reports from previous years' oversight encounters. There are schools across South Africa, in fact, majority of schools where students do not match the department's ratio of 1.30 where it comes to teacher-student classroom arrangement. There is a failure of policy implementation. Majority of schools are overcrowded with limited chairs and desks to accommodate the students in a normal classroom. There are schools that still have asbestos and pit toilets in a democratic dispensation. This is inhuman and must never be normalized. The PPM in schools should be amended and uniform for schools. Schools, regardless of numbers of students, should have at least 4 HODs, deputy principals, and principals to ensure proper management of schools. Early childhood development, little attention to implement the move from social development to Department of Basic Education is stagnant. The department has declared on several occasions that it is ready, however, even to date is failing. ICT, the department was in a hurry to train teachers in 2015 to 2016 to integrate ICT in classrooms environment. However, the little support to infrastructural development is paid to. The department is very slow in building new modern schools which are inclusive, offers different curriculum and different streams, or even revamping old schools. Inclusive education continues to be challenges in the department. The department is not intentionally in ensuring inclusivity in schools and developing schools to accommodate students of different abilities. We stand to reject the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm told that the next speaker is supposed to be Chabele. Honorable Chabele.
I'm alive next door. Thanks, Honorable House Chairperson. The appropriation adjustment bill is important in order to ensure that the application, the appropriation allocated to the department is optimally spent in response to the areas of spending which require more funds based on the changing needs. The 2020 financial year came with numerous challenges which have also impacted the planning of the department and implementation of projects that will include building of schools. The construction industry is one of the sectors that was negatively impacted by the lockdowns. The rollover which was granted to the Department of Basic Education is a result of the inability to spend without hindrance the funds allocated to them in this budget. Treasury has also approved a rollover because of the infrastructure development in our basic education system. It's a major need due to the inequalities which the coronavirus pandemic has created. Chairperson, the infrastructure backlog is a major area of concern, and the department should continue to enhance the technical capability in managing infrastructure development projects. The department has faced challenges of delayed infrastructure projects, which are as a result of different factors which should be responded to. The department should also ensure that infrastructure projects create employment opportunities and benefit the local communities. It is unfortunate that some of the projects are delayed by local organizations or business lobby groups who demand involvement in projects. And in this regard, we implore the department to ensure procurement processes include localization of inputs, labor, and local enterprises to ensure community ownership and involvement in the development of and implementation of the projects. For the current financial year, the department has made various requirements to respond to an immediate expenditure need of workbooks which are critical for learning. The supply of workbooks to all learners is important to ensure that no learner is at disadvantage. The only concern about the environment is the shift from the infrastructure grant. That money should not be moved from infrastructure to somewhere else. As the African National Congress, we support the adjustment appropriation bill to enable the department to continue delivering on its mandate as a key priority of the government. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. This vote is agreed to. Objections of the DA, EFF, and FF Plus are noted. At this point, 39 hours, we should break for lunch and come back at 13:30. So we'll adjourn for a short while and come back at 30 minutes past 1. Thank you very much.